This is another addition to the blooper series, baby, just to totally give it away before it needs to be given away. This did not go well at all. So I read about a build on Reddit, and therefore, what was it? Shoot. Team Liquid, yeah, that's what it's called. Basically Marauder Ghost with a Reaper opening. And I was like, that sounds like the most fun build in the whole world, but I knew that it had no possible chance of being a good build, because ghosts are only good against bio and SCVs. So they'd be good against like a Thor bush with a million SCVs, or like a bio build, or that's it, basically, that's it. So they're terrible against siege tanks. Marauders are okay against siege tanks, and theoretically, if, whoa, what was that noise? Anyway, theoretically, if you snipe all the Marines and he's going Marine Siege Tank, then you should be able to have ready access to his Siege Tanks with your Marauders. And I could picture that going well if he has 4 Siege Tanks, or 3 Siege Tanks, or 2 Siege Tanks. But if he has 6, you can run Infinity Marauders at 6 tanks, and they're just going to go dead. Maybe not 6, but 12 or 20 or 50 for sure. I mean, tanks have this synergy where the more you get, the more ridiculous splash damage becomes, because you can only fit so many Marauders into this tightly packed area. So anyway, my very first Reaper got 6 kills, and then I sent in these dudes, and they saw, obviously, Blue Flame Hellions, but they only managed to get 4 kills. But that's $400 worth of Hellions killed, so I did do more damage than I took, so those Reapers were sexy. But they didn't feel very sexy. They just all got instantly myrtleized by that first splash. Just like, splash, dead. Terrible. So this build relies on 3 racks, tech lab, no expansion, ghost thingy. And it's so easy to spend all your money, because if your gas goes over 100, you make a ghost, and if your gas is under 100, you make Marauders until you're out of minerals. So you never have any minerals or gas, and it's so easy to just keep your minerals and gas really low. You don't have to worry about when to make more ghosts and when to make Marauders. You just spend all your gas on ghosts, and then the rest you make Marauders. Easy peasy, Japanesey. So, anyway, I made this huge army, and I'm gonna go over there and go shoot him in the face. He sees it with that racks floating around. He's like, oh, weird, Marauder Ghost, what are you hitting me with that for? You'll notice if we look at spending, I'm $1,000 ahead on army spending. I've made much more stuff than him, even though both of us have spent all our money. And that's just because I've got a lot more workers than him. I'm mining at full capacity. I've made 38 workers on one base, so 8 of them are basically AFK. I left some Marauders back home because Blue Flame Hellion, Blue Flame Hellion, but this battle went terribly, terribly badly. There's just nothing you can do with ghosts against a bunker and some siege tanks up in the high ground. So, obviously, if I were a genius, I would just not have attacked with that once I saw the 2 tanks up here. But this is the first time I'm trying this build, and the whole idea of the build is to hit early before he gets a critical massive siege tank. So, he's already got 2, now he's got 3. I had to hit then, didn't I? Obviously not. I should have just taken my expo, taken more expos, and started getting tanks of my own and transitioned out of it. So the whole idea of the build is Marauder Ghost, and it doesn't work at all against someone who's going pure factory. It really relies on him making bio or banshees to do anything useful. So by going 1 base 3 racks, though, there's this huge spending advantage. The infrastructure to produce is so cheap. I mean, a factory with a reactor is $350, and this is like free. It's like 200, so it's not nearly as much. And you only need these 3 racks, and you can spend all your money off 3 racks. Very sexy. So I like the synergy. It's just that ghosts aren't good in attacking siege tanks and Hellions anyway. I mean, because Hellions, Blue Flame Hellions especially, they do huge amounts of damage and splash damage, and ghosts, you tend not to really be splitting your ghosts. If you have a bunch of ghosts, you really need to be focusing on Emp and Snipe. So you're not going to spend any time splitting them up and making sure they're not all clumped. Yeah, so I'm going to send a Marauder over here just to die, because that's how Marauders roll, right? Anyway, my economy continues to be way bigger than his, even though he just happens to have dropped down a bunch of mules right now. I got 63 workers, he's got 45. I feel like I probably just would have won this game if I did a normal build. I'm keeping my stuff spread out into 3 places, some Marauders in here, some Marauders in here. and some Marauders in here, and then they're all on a hotkey, so that if once this stuff starts inching forward, I can pile them all together and go kick people in the face. But this was just stupid. I shouldn't be sitting back when I'm not making tanks and he is, because then he can just put tanks on my command center. And I just didn't even think of that until he did it, and then I was like, wow, I really should not have been doing that. So I've spent a lot more money on army. I've spent about the same on tech, a little more on econ. I've got a bigger, no, we've got about the same. I've got a slightly smaller army, though I don't know if tech makes up for that. I am upgrading stuff, and he's not. So, yeah, anyway, we'll probably have about the same size army, but there's just no chance whatsoever to hit this many tanks with Marauders. I'm going to take a bunch of Cloaked Ghosts in there, but think about this, 250 bucks each, right? So this is 5,000, 500, 1,007, almost $2,000 worth of ghosts. So they would have to kill an awful lot of tanks. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'd have to kill 6 tanks just to be worth it. And Terrans have scan, so come on, kill 2 tanks, 3 tanks, 4 tanks. But he does eventually notice in the scan, and they just instantly evaporate to all this AoE, and that's not even close. And Marauders just can't walk into those. So, again, I like the idea of the build, and it seemed like such a good idea, but, I mean, it's not really practical. So, more of this is going to keep happening, but as long as he keeps making tanks and Hellions, there's just no chance that I'm going to be able to win with Marauders, a tiny smattering of tanks and ghosts. It's just not a good unit composition in TvT. And he gets lots of opportunities to run in and kill off workers. I'm down to 31. He could easily just park these tanks inside my base and then be the end, but he likes to be nice and calm and steady. Probably should have made medevacs. Basically, the idea of taking 5 Marauders and 3 Ghosts and hitting it at about 7 minutes is something I like. It's a decent idea. But the idea of making Ghosts throughout the game and making Marauders mostly as your anti-mech unit, I don't like at all. Marauder Medevac with some tanks makes more sense. Marauder Medevac Thor would make some sense, but primarily racks with a couple of factories is no dice. And the dude who posted about the build basically said if they ever get on 2 base, you do have to transition into siege tanks. So it's, I mean, I just didn't do it right, obviously. But the very first push didn't stand a chance. I don't particularly like this. I did really like the way that the Reaper opening worked. I might do that more often. But, bye.